I gave everybody a copy of the rough tentative. In here is pretty much everything except for final determinations on compensation. And again, this is after the tentative, when you have the public hearing, there's still adjustability here, but you wanna try to get reasonably close to what your final product's gonna look like, okay? So, I gave everybody a copy with the backed out, increase for the police department and the dispatchers. 9.91 is in the ballpark. You're gonna be, probably have to be somewhere between 8.5 and 9.5 when the tax cap calculations all come in. Right now, you're subsidizing your budget very much with fund balance. Not dramatically more than previously. 2 years ago, you had put in almost $250,000 in fund balance, and you didn't use any of it because you did a very good job in budgets not being spent completely out. This year's not the same picture, obviously. So you're going to take probably a $200,000 to $300,000 hit on your fund balance for 2014-15 activities, which will put your fund balance somewhere in the mid-4s. If you maximize what's here as far as fund balance, you're probably looking at having a residual in the 150 to 200,000, which is getting quite low, you know, for the size budget that you have. So it's not my recommendation that you do that. Certainly you can go in with the tentative with that, and then after the public hearing, based on those comments, if there are any, then you can make adjustments to lessen your amount of fund balance that you'll need. There is some provisions for what you didn't use last year to be able to be used this year, because you don't use your whole tax cap authorization. I think the residual is like 19,000. The only problem is that if you get really close and there's a mistake of a couple $100 in the budget, it could basically disqualify you from the rebate if you're over the cap. That's why some towns and villages actually pass the legislation that they're gonna override, not intending to override, but to have that security factor that if they do go over, that they don't lose the rebate over it, okay? But it's a political thing.
Wait a minute, if you vote to go over the tax cap, you still can get the rebate?
If you don't go over.
Oh, as long as
Oh,
you stay on.
yeah, you gotta still stay under.
Sure, that's
So what's the
right.
point of voting?
Yeah.
to go over?
Because if you make a mistake in your budget
Right,
and you go over, you lose the rebate.
But if you go over, no matter what.
either way, you
don't
lose the
get-
rebate if you go over.
Well, no, because if you pass the legislation and you go over, it's like a little security. You don't want to go over because of a mistake, is kind of my point. You don't want to make a mistake and then everybody thinks that, oh yeah, they didn't go over the cap, they didn't vote to go over the cap, and then all of a sudden, it went over the cap, and then everybody's disappointed. It's some of the villages and towns are doing it just as a security factor.
So let me get this straight. If we vote to go over the cap,
And you
and there's a mistake made and we end up going over the number, we still get the rebate because we voted to go over the cap?
No, what happens, let me
That's what I
Yeah, I
thought he
don't
said.
see
let me
what the-
recall how this was characterized to me. You go over the cap, you know what, I forgot exactly how it was characterized to me. There was a reason for them voting for it, but not doing it, and it was, I'm trying to remember.
What I'm saying is, I'm not looking to do it either. But if this is a catch-all so that we wanna stay on the cap, we voted to stay in the cap, but there was a mistake, and we went over a little bit, rather than losing it,
So it's like a safety net.
that's what I'm talking about. If that's it, then I wanna vote to go over the cap too.
No, I'm characterizing it wrong. I'm trying to remember how it was explained to me. And it had something to do with the fact that a mistake, you could mitigate a mistake by doing the legislation. And I'm trying to remember why.
We need to find out why, because
I'll
I have no
relook
problem
at
voting.
it.
I have no problem voting to go over it if it's
I
gonna help
was
us.
I was at one of the seminars and we were discussing this, and we were
Right.
talking about some towns doing this. And I was like, wow, that's interesting, but I'm not characterizing it right, obviously, because it's not adding up.
But right now, we've got $19,000 worth of wiggle room.
Well, no, not on this
It was
number.
last year.
Last year's
Well,
number
this year,
had a
yeah,
net spread of
that's
about
correct.
19,000. That can be added to this year's number.
Oh, as long as
So
you
you get, in
don't make a
addition to your
mistake.
cap factor,
Right.
you get an additional 19,000. My point is don't get too close, because if there is a small error in the spreadsheet, which obviously I'm gonna double check,
We'll
and then
never
I'm
have.
also gonna ask Anna to go through the numbers also as a second set of eyes. You know, it shouldn't be an issue, but I have heard a couple cases where, they don't vote to override the cap, and they make a mistake in the budget, and they break the cap, and they lose the rebate. And the reverse of that is, again, it's now escaped me, because for whatever reason, they were doing this, and it was giving them it's some type of safety factor, but
Mhm.
obviously, I'm not recalling what it was.
That's all right, I just, are we gonna be pretty close with our numbers where they're at?
You'll be close only in that you gotta use some fund balance.
Okay,
So your adjustment of your fund balance will determine where you're at.
right.
Okay, because you're not, to have a clean budget without a fund balance, you'd have to lower your spending by $305,000.
So we still could cut it a little and use less fund
Yeah,
balance.
we're talking 305,000 without cutting anything. That
But,
means leaving everything as is.
Right.
We have to spend 305. I definitely think we need to cut.
Well, but you still haven't added raises for your non-union.
Then we definitely need to cut.
and aren't we going to allow for contingency to cover other raises? You mentioned cost of living.
Well, you have a contingency, I put 100,000 in the contingency, which is higher than last year, I think it was 58 we put in. I think you need that, it's 2% of your overall budget. Your contingencies for your sewer and water fund are 10%. But that's gonna be an area where, depending on, remember, if you don't spend your contingency, you're not spending your fund balance, because they can be tied right into each other. But you have the contingency there just in case, so, you know, it kind of works hand in hand, because ultimately, you can always do a budget adjustment and pay for things with fund balance, but I don't recommend that. It's almost like when you buy things with credit card, right? You forget, it's not like you're physically giving cash and you start to lose track of how much you've spent. So the better way to do it is to leave fund balance alone unless it's a situation beyond your control, and you have a contingency fund so you can track your spending on your contingency. And oh, by the way, you as a board can determine whether what's being done merits use of the contingency. And if a department's overspending, you can basically say, no, we're freezing, we can't spend that money.
I do want to go on record, I've had a conversation with Ed about contingency and the fact that we're going for grants for consolidation planning. Most of those grants have a match involved, plus they're all drawdowns, so we need money to pay out before we can draw down if we're successful in getting them. So the contingency's gotta cover that money too.
I'm just recollecting, I'm thinking what it was they were voting to potentially override the cap because of maybe if it was something related to penalty or whatever, because they never did vote against it. So going over the cap, there was some type of penalty related to it. But I'll look it up. I'll find out what the answer is, because now it's stumped me. Okay, so now let's discuss the couple things that we have remaining then. All right, so we'll just flip pages. Starting on the revenue side, if you look at your revenue, your adopted budget was about 2.99, and your spread here is about 60,000.
The page on that.
This is page 1 of 2 of revenues. Okay. Now, mind you, this number here, the 3,049,000, does not have the 22,000 backed out for the police. So right now, that 60,000 is probably at the limit of your tax cap situation. Okay. All right, and then all your revenues, your two biggest things are real property taxes and your sales tax. Sales tax number came from the estimate we got from the county, and then factoring in the trends from previous years. On-street parking meters, I lowered it because they're just not hitting it right now. I looked at parking meters so far for this year. I'll give you what I have. So your revenue from parking meters as of the middle of this month is 14,700 out of 28. So you've got 6 months worth of revenue, and we're at 9.5 months. So we're going to be down, and I know that there's been discussions about the number of broken meters and so on and so on. So I was definitely conservative with that number. Hopefully, you know, that is much higher than that. Interest and earnings, lowered that, and fines, forfeited bail, we kept things flat until, you know, again, if you get more revenue, that's great. Okay, page 202, you have your chips, 25,000, and then the interfund transfers of 70 factors in the transfers in of allotments for insurance and computer support fees for the water and sewer funds. And that gives you 70,000 in revenue that supports the A fund. Okay, that's your revenue side. All right, so now we go to expenditures for, what should I call it? Where's my general fund? Here it is. All right, so you should be on general fund expenditures at 7 pages. Okay, so again, all the salaries right now that you have are based on line-to-line straight transfers from the current budget. We had some modifications on the treasurer line, as I mentioned earlier. I added 3 hours a week to the responsibilities of treasurer. I broke out the assistant's salary, and the treasurer's contractual went down $5,000 because we have an IT line now. Our audits stayed the same. Nugent and Hausler told us that they will continue at the same rate of previous years. Budget officer's a new line. That's in line with pretty much majority of towns and villages in the state because they are 2 different positions. Purchasing, numbers stayed the same, again, based on whether or not you want to add a percentage to that increase. Page 207. Clerk, left the line the same, a couple increases, actually 1 increase, 1 decrease. Gina did mention to me, Gina, was there a concern you had on your contractual that you needed to change, or you're good with that?
Yeah, I needed to look at that again to see, with the IT moving out
Okay,
and the computer support, that moving out, some of the things, there was a couple of things I just wanted to look at that it might change
okay,
for me, once I get to actually look at the numbers again.
okay.
That was all done pretty quickly.
Yeah, the change to that. Okay, well, the 4,000 in computer was backed out, so your number there is without the 4,000 computer costs.
And that, because we also got the new, closer estimate from KVS, and it was a little, maybe 1,000 higher than what we were estimating before that. So there's just maybe a couple little tweaks.
Okay. Attorney, we put 50,000 because we're underfunded in attorney. By the way, I'm going to ask the board, I'm going to recommend the board do a balance, a budget transfer between engineer and attorney, because you still have 2.5 months of attorney, and there's like less than $1,000 in that account, okay? Engineer, left at 45,000. Salaries that are further down, like central garage, are all reflective of what the estimate in the payroll will be. That's off, straight line off the payroll, no increase, but longevity is factored in. Okay, page 3. Insurance went up 25. Judgment and claims went up 5. Contingency went up to 100 because truthfully, you need that support as a backup. Your central communication salary, you can drop 6 off of that because that includes 2%.
Oh, could I go back to judgment and claims?
Yes.
Are we anticipating a lot of new certs?
There's some still out there that have not come to fruition yet. But, you know, it's
Still
not.
pending? They're actually pending? or
Yeah, I
is
think
this
there's
just-
1 or 2 that's still pending.
Do you know the properties or the,
I have sheets, I don't, do you know, is it Peregrine?
It's usually the same ones. Peregrine was one, there was actually, like a single-family resident had one in,
okay.
and, in Ondior Park, there was one. Haven't heard anything on them.
Yeah, the big ticket ones there, and you always, like, there's a couple that are regular ones.
Peregrine's a big ticket one, I would think.
Yeah.
Are they pending for a long time, or they do this every year?
Peregrine doesn't do it every year, but you have a couple that do it regularly. Yeah. Some of our bigger
Right.
landholders. It's almost like part of the trust, the way it's done. Trust has directions every year, challenge everything, so,
Nice.
okay. Reserve funds, traffic control, again, those, any changes with the union positions are based on longevity. There's an on-street parking salary which wasn't put in before. Well, it was last year, but it wasn't before that. This is that parking meter, guy, but again, hopefully you get more revenue than you pay out in the meter guy.
Well, it's close.
At this point, I gotta check on them, because I'll tell you what, with the meter people we had, I don't think we were seeing that big of a great thing. Right now, we got the police on it, and they're doing it. So I'm leaving it until then. What kills me again, Kenny's made no effort to hire anybody. The money's sitting there, it's budgeted for this year, and he's made no effort to hire anyone.
How come that guy with the sunglasses? Is
Big guy?
Yeah.
He had a job,
At Bear Mountain?
but it was a night job, but he didn't wanna come in during the day because he might be tired.
Oh, okay.
He's like 20. Come on, you're killing me inside.
Okay.
But, I still wanna budget it, but I definitely wanna just leave it where it is, because there's no, there's no problem with them doing it. We gotta get on it and make sure the meters are continually that work.
So if that money isn't used this year, it can help offset their overtime?
Well,
No.
it should, you want it to roll right back into your.
That's where it's gonna
The
go.
A fund?
Yeah. Okay, so, you got your fire department, which was discussed. There are obviously some decently hefty increases. Fire department's up about 35,000 year to year. Again, that was all justified and you guys are good with it. Street administration, your stipends there for, DPW position, and there's discussion as to how you're gonna work, the admin part of that. Street maintenance, salary numbers are listed. Again, overtime, all overtime lines are based on 5% of the regular salary. I gave 5% overtime factors for all of your salaries.
So far,
Yeah. Yeah, within 5%. And I try to deal with even numbers because it is a budget. It's not an exact thing, so trying to pick the exact number, it's not gonna be there anyway, so it's an
you got some.
even number. Okay, okay, but next, snow removal, 45, 15, and 52. This has to do with a truck, I think it's snow removal. The one thing I would say is that if the board is able to justify vehicles, you'd be better off having vehicles sourced out of your special districts and have them used for multiple purposes.
I believe they are.
Well,
You talk about snow removal?
well, you got a $15,000 equipment request out of snow removal, that's an A-fund item.
Oh, I see what you're saying, take it out of another department?
As long as you can back it up.
Yeah.
You know, again,
Make it happen, yeah.
you know, if you have a, you know, like if you look in New York City, the sanitation department does snow removal.
Right.
Those trucks do both jobs. So if you can find a way to justify the use of a, even if you have to do some type of financial transfer, you do it.
So can we do this?
Can we do it with Johnny's truck for plowing? Do we-
Supposedly we use Johnny's truck.
No, I know, but do we take that number out of the water, the sewer
I
department?
I don't see why, if you're using a sewer personnel, that he couldn't use a sewer vehicle.
Well, he is,
Yes.
but is that, are we?
But the
are we
money
covering that
going,
money?
yeah, the money for John to plow, because he's a sewer guy, can come out of sewer.
No.
But can we at least get the equipment out of
Yeah.
If
there?
you can make a reasonable support that you're multi-purposing vehicles. And oh, by the way, my sewer vehicle that I need 365 days a year, once in a while, we use it for snow removal of the sewer plant, which would be completely legitimate.
Right.
Okay.
Because
And
the
it-
Rose Drive and all
And
that.
get to there.
anything related to sewer, like drainage. Drainage is related to sewer, so you can back up some of these things by using vehicles.
Right, some of our snow removal can go to that because of drainage, right? Because we have to bring them in to clear catch basins and stuff, isn't that?
Clearing catch basins is a sewer function.
Okay. That's, well, that, and the other thing just came to mind was, because you're saying this, so we can make note, grass cutting too, for water and sewer. If that's in the is any of that area, the water sewer area, a grass cutting contract?
Yes.
So that needs to come out into water and sewer,
Okay.
out of the DPW as
Yeah,
well.
but what you can also do is you can say, look, there's a little bit of like a barter almost, okay? Grass cutting, A-fund takes care of, well, you know, the sewer truck gets used for snow plowing, we work together type of thing.
Yeah, but the
Right.
sewer truck should be used for snow plowing anyway, because they have to plow their area.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is if you're going to buy equipment, try to buy it in your special district.
What is the 15,000?
I think it's for a truck.
Just 15,000?
Let me see.
Oh, no, that 15,000 was for,
It's a reserve fund?
no, he's asking for
It's an
that for the thing
equipment,
for
some
the
piece of
sidewalk.
equipment.
For the
Oh, the
sidewalk.
Bobcat.
Oh, okay.
The Bobcat.
Which is heavily needed at the water department.
Okay.
You know, I'm just
Right, I
saying, these are the
remember
types, these are the types of things that,
He can't get around the water.
I agree.
you know, if you think about like the loader, look at the loader, right? The loader's an A-fund item. It gets used for snow removal, but it also gets used for those departments.
Right. And that's where our department heads have to be more on point of keeping a log, so that we can take percentages out of those,
We gotta bring it to their attention, because I don't
Right.
think they're aware of
No.
all these,
no, not at all.
things that we need to have done at this point in time.
And again,
And that requires bookkeeping.
Yeah, and that goes back to that training thing.
exactly.
Okay.
Well, what is that they have down there now, but they use for sidewalk cleaning?
They have like what do they have? I thought they had a Bobcat or something.
Yeah,
had
they
something.
do. What's,
He's looking for, it's not a Zamboni, whatever that thing is, up at the, the same thing, that's similar to what they have at the high school,
No, there's,
with the tracks on it.
Yeah, different wheels, yeah. There was track on it rather than wheels, I think.
He's looking at different things, we're not allowing him to buy anything, we're bringing it to us first. I also asked, I did ask Jack and a couple other people, to get some more feedback. Kevin's our department head, and I, my 100% faith in him. But there's also, we have a lot of different contractors in our community. And I'd like for them to get a little more helpful with their opinions of, I know people who have these three and they're horrible. I don't know why you're looking at it. We can't just go on either a salesman's say, or because one other guy from another thing uses it and he loves it. You know, if that's the case, how come everyone doesn't have them?
Oh, we I forgot that was for that piece of equipment, I remember it now.
But, yeah, it's definitely for the water department. There's no
Well, I'm just
question.
saying that something like this, if you guys as a board can get enough justification to say, this is really at least 51% used in a special district, I think you have the ability to justify it.
Or it's 25 and 26 in water and sewer. So 51 between the districts, correct?
Well, you're not buying a machine with two different districts, so you're buying it within one. You're not splitting the machine in half.
What if we need it for water and sewer?
You know, I think you could do it. I can't see why not, but you have to have meticulous records, because it could be questioned. Right? But you know that with the tax cap, that there's going to be efforts to more activity-based cost what we're doing, so that the A fund doesn't have so much pressure.
Exactly.
Because the A fund has always been the default.
Well, it seems like a logistical nightmare keeping track of all these, all of a sudden we're charging for IT, and Kevin was on the job from the water plant with a piece of equipment, I mean.
This is why your accounting firms exist today.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I
we
don't know
basically
how,
created, it was birthed in accounting.
we're not gonna know unless he notifies us that he used this piece of equipment for this or that, so I think they gotta be a little better versed in what we're trying to accomplish.
Can they keep a logbook?
Well, they're gonna have to do something.
It should be,
you know?
it should be a logbook.
And the logbook is simple, and that's something we can actually look at as liaison, or as a board, or as department head use. Bring the logbooks, what do you got? You've only got 2 entries? And then we can go over examples, did you do this, did you do that, in a department meeting? That should be in your logbook, we need that. And explain to them, you know, you're all taxpayers, we're trying to help you. You know, we're trying to help you and trying to help this department maintain.
At the end of the day, it should be that logbook, what they use that vehicle for, should be checked out in the morning, time is checked out, come in afternoon, time was checked in, name, who signed it, who used it.
Yeah.
and what
You
it
get
used
real
for.
into it now.
Maybe right into the, but if you buy this piece of equipment, this Bobcat, maybe have a logbook right in the Bobcat. So when the water department takes it, besides DPW or whoever's got it, the water department sewer, they use it, the hours, who uses sign in, sign out, and then something like that. Then we have them send us the logbook every quarter or something like that, just to.
Yeah,
There's
again,
gotta be an easier
just
way.
a thought to, help with things that are reasonably easy to justify utilizing special district money to do.
Well, logbooks was also talked about before, but for some reason. it
When you
didn't.
get that look on it, as you say, it scares me.
But it should be,
I agree.
it should be a logbook.
Okay, snow removal, again, we talked about there. Street lighting, 85,000. Right now for street lighting, we're at 70,000, so that number's, I think, pretty good.
The one thing about street lighting, was make sure all the departments are on top of it, as well as us and other people. No one realizes that we pay a base rate no matter how many lights are on. So if 10 lights are out,
We're still paying.
Still
the same
paying.
amount, yeah.
so that's gotta be put out to the entire community. If there's a light out in front of your house, don't think you're saving us money, because you don't think we need it.
It's not metered, yeah.
We're losing the money. So that's something that needs do me a favor, Gina, if you could, put that on the next agenda under my report, because that's gotta continuously go out.
By the way, speaking about energy, the guy that came yesterday, Constellation Energy, I think his number's higher than what you got right now with direct energy.
Well,
So,
the 4 that he did supposedly aren't under anything. There's 16 others that are under direct and a couple other things. So the 4 accounts that he went over, is what he told me anyway, that's why he did those 4. Those are easy. I don't know why direct energy didn't do them.
yeah, I don't know.
They're not under any, direct energy is another company just like his.
Right.
They did these 16, I don't know why they didn't do these 4. So these 4 are just under Orange and Rockland. So one way or the other, we should look at either going with all direct energy, get these 4 under it,
You think you
or
just
go with
overlooked-
Constellation either way.
You think you just possibly overlooked them, or you think you?
Direct
just-
energy, I don't know.
He didn't say which 4, I don't know which 4 you're talking
I
about.
haven't done,
You did say
Well,
four, though.
we do have some more on our bills, but we'd have to look to see if they're just supply or actually energy charge. But the other thing I'd recommend is an outfit that is supplying the county, because they're getting the county pretty good rates.
Oh,
I think it's M&R Energy or something like that. I can give you a contact on it.
But we're locked into direct energy till November of 16 right now.
Yeah.
With not a bad rate, it's lower than what the guy had yesterday.
Yeah, so, so just a thought on that, you know, it's good that the ideas are there, but
Yep.
just be probably
well, we've gotta, yeah,
discriminatory.
we've gotta keep, always be looking. And
Yeah.
if we don't need it, we don't need it.
Okay, so sidewalks, parks, everything's the same. Beautification as published. Again, when I'm saying as published, if I don't hear anything, I'm gonna move it to the right column, because the right column is your tentative budget, okay? So unless you tell me something, I'm
For
gonna just
parks, what's
consider.
contingency and equipment?
That's contractual.
What is that?
That's your 04, your supplies, your contracts, except for mowing. Whatever you do for parks, I don't have a printout for what we've done for
All right, I
parks,
just
but,
wanna look at
I'll give
that. It's all good,
you,
not only that.
I'll give you what Kevin said that he needed the money for.
Why did we have such a low cost for mowing in 2013 through 14?
I think
That was a bit.
No, what happened was, it was charged to, if I recall, it was charged to a different account. The mowing was done, but it was being paid for by maybe out of the 04, I don't remember. It was at the, yeah. It was coming out of, it actually started this year and we corrected it and got it all into mowing. They, you know, the ladies downstairs weren't used to this change and they coded it for the standard 04. But now they're doing it and, you know, you can see that.
But the department heads should be coding them.
That's right. Yeah,
Fact,
yeah.
and this is part of it.
Yeah, and you know what, and with all honesty on that, that makes them a little gun shy to code stuff, because they end up holding the bag, because they're trying to help what somebody else should have been doing in the first place.
Right.
Yeah, but what happened was we were, I think we were over budget for that line, and I looked at everything that was spent, and I was like, oh, wait a second, this is all mowing. So everything was reversed into, pulled out of that code. All right, so here's what your fencing, your contractual becomes fencing, rope pond, chemicals, repairs for bathroom fountains, electric usage, bathhouse repairs, and contractual mowing. Your electric usage, just for like the pools and fountains and all that, are $6,000.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's right, yeah. Who does the pool? Is that in the water department? Do they still pay for the chemicals and all that?
No, we do it, but the town is supposed to pay for the
Yeah.
chemicals.
Okay.
The town
But
recently.
see, this is exactly where it's all messed up. This 32,000 should be in the town,
Yeah.
without question. And that's, as a board, we've got to decide that that's the way it is. And I'll go to, I'll go with somebody else to the board meeting. If you guys don't feel that way, then I'm okay, I'll go by myself. But I'd like to, if I go, I'd like to go with board backing, saying, the entire village board wants you to know that as far as the village is concerned, which is 2/3 of the town, this should be under a fund in the town.
It's probably a little bit of the reason why the town has no debt.
Well, how close, now, they were very, had issues with getting their cap. I don't understand why they're not, and if we transferred this to them, would that hurt their cap, or would that give them more cushion
Well,
to?
they haven't budgeted for it, they would have to budget for it next year.
Right, but if they budgeted, say we transferred parks and a couple other things into the town, would that give them cushion because we moved it over there, or would they have to cut somewhere to keep the same
The
numbers?
cap is based on assessed value.
Okay, so no matter what,
If you gave the park, well, it still wouldn't help, because it's
it's
not
tax,
taxed.
it's not tax, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll get my house for you.
Okay, beautification, 5,400. Band concerts, nothing. Youth programs, 7,000. Did you guys,
What did they do in there? Well, I thought we were changing that.
I
No,
thought
no,
we're-
that's, we're putting it back to that.
Oh,
But is part of it,
That's,
Big
that,
Brothers, Big Sisters?
part of it's definitely Big Brothers Big Sisters.
And part,
We haven't decided what portion's what. In the past, just so we know the history, in the past, $7,000 is going to the Big Brother Big Sister program. We have a very good Big Brother Sister Big Brother Big Sister program here. I think we have to support it. Whether or not it's the villages, again, they run it through the school. Is it the village's responsibility or the town's? This is another question.
And what
I
does
think we
it
can't
pay
abandon
for?
it.
What does it pay for?
It pays for the coordinator. There isn't a local coordinator that runs the program. Almost all the Big Brothers and Big Sisters are cadets, but I imagine part of their budget also is, like if they got pizza one day for a celebration or something, you know, the majority of the time spent with that is them at the middle school, spending time with the kids, then they do some off-prem stuff, maybe a bowling, maybe this, maybe that.
One day they gave out an Xbox. I mean, they use the money. It's not
Yeah.
like the.
And they're not, I know Nancy Kozlowski, she is frugal, and they are hard workers. I've talked to her about if we can't support them, I mean, 7,000, when you look at the big picture, isn't a lot, but it is a lot towards the one program. The problem is that I want Nancy to give us a report, so that people in the town
Yeah,
understand.
she should come to the meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've told her that, I said, look, if you could get more money, I said, I have no problem putting, telling these people, put some things in their stores and whatnot, come by, whatever, 1 month will be Big Brother, Big Sister program. Get more money, but people don't know, because they pretty much stay to themselves in the school, they don't know the phenomenal stuff they do. So, yeah, I think it's key that this year she only took 25, she was supposed to take 35, I don't know what the next one was. She left 1,000 behind, we were talking about getting to the center.
Yeah.
Okay, I wanna give her at least 35 next year, at least, and see what we can do about promoting it throughout the area, because it's a needed program. These kids that they're working with benefit, without question.
Okay, historian, you guys said you'd fund the salary till the end of the fiscal, or end of the calendar year. There was correspondence about something about the town board. The town supervisor said he was in favor of it, but there's a question about the town board.
Town board voted against it, just so you understand.
Oh, really?
That's what happened with the $1,500 that we're still, if they took it, we're still paying $1,000 in contractual, and we don't need a village and a town historian.
So they wiped out their whole historian line?
No, they voted not to take our line. They pay 15, we pay 15.
Yeah.
What we asked for the first year of, let's all get together and be friends, you take 15, we'll continue to house them here,
And
pay
contractual.
computer, phone, and everything else $1,000. You pay the $3,000, and we eliminate the word village, and now there's a town historian for the town of Highlands, which we are part of. They voted against that. So this is why we have to go back to and in a nice way, we have to go back to the town and say, you gave me the impression when we met here as a group, you were for consolidation. This has nothing to do with consolidation. This has to do with the village has been double taxed since it started. Being double taxed for parks, being double taxed for the historian, and several other pieces. Plowing, that's in the village. That's us. But the parks are a full town, I'm not gonna, you gotta let me get in the box. Bob, come on, give me a look.
No,
You're sitting next to me, supposed to.
I
Let's move on.
was curious, so we've got to make
Okay.
that,
All right, so historians at 800. Celebrations, 1,200 was put in. Celebration stays at 1,200. Senior Citizen Center, 20,000 was asked for. I spoke to Fran Galoo, and senior citizens, they're being pretty frugal with the money. There's still over 50% of their budget remaining.
Right.
Obviously, with some of these incidents, there's some charges here, but there should be some residual based on everything I'm seeing. So 20,000 is going into the right column. Planning, Jim Ramus made a presentation, the board seemed fine with it, so they're in the tentative. Storm sewers, equipment, 13,000 is what's asked for. And that's that. Refuse and garbage wasn't budgeted last year, should have been, this year it is. I don't know if that's gonna be enough, but it's something to, deal with the leave and some of the trash, I think, that gets picked up.
We do have that, though, that's in place now, just so you know. It's good to keep this in place, we have an area now to dump for free, so that, hopefully, that will not be spent.
Okay. Getting into A-line state retirement, again, that's a floating or a revolving 5-year calculation. And since 2008, with the economy getting better, it's getting a little bit lower because the return on investment has gotten better. So that's why that number's lower. Also applies to the PFRS, the police, theirs number is lower. These are all estimates that we get from New York State. LoSAP, 42,000, minor change. Social Security and Medicare, we've been over, in my opinion, based on everything now, we've been overfunding it a little bit, so I curtailed the amounts to better reflect where our experience has been. Workers' comp has went up. Unemployment insurance, put a nominal 1,500 in there. We had one person, I guess, the crossing guard files for it. And then health insurance has went up about a good 5, healthy 5%. Okay, so all that moves over. Okay, your bonds, your 2003 were rolled into your 2012, so that's why you have nothing there. The principal, and these are all stated amounts on the table, so it's not really something you can negotiate or modify. It's what you have agreed to pay. It's like a mortgage. So those numbers are reflected there, and you can see that your bond interest is a big bulk of your, your 2009. It's heavily interest because of the way the payments are, made much smaller on the front end. So your principal's, not that much, but initially when it was first financed, if you look, the principal was $9,000. Okay, it's commonly done, I don't necessarily agree with it, but when you open up that type of financing, you give yourself breathing room on the first year, so you don't take a big principal hit, but you pay for it on the back end. So future budgets end up having to absorb the lesser number on the front end, okay? Your 2009 interest is declining, though, obviously, because as the bond principal gets paid off, your interest exposure goes down. Webb Lane, you're in your last payment for Webb Lane, so that almost $19,400 is there.
What about the $250,000? We were talking about that as far as paying off, are we still doing that?
No, it's not. I backed off on that when I was told that we did not have to get rated for that debt. Because I was concerned that if we had to be rated for that debt, that's very expensive to get rated on something that's so small. But because it's under $1 million, it will not require to be rated, all right? Your bond anticipation notes right now, you have your street reconstruction principal. I can lower that payment. Let me tell you what I can take out of it. Hopefully I have it with me. I believe I can capture about $20,000. So I can drop it down to 30 for the principal. If you look though, look at the interest spread. Your interest on that amount is almost $5,000 less in that year, just because of the rate you got.
Right.
Okay, so we do have a little bit of room there. If we want to change our minimum payment, we could get this down to, I believe it's around 30. I don't know what happened with debt folder.
Yeah, but what does that do to our payments, when you're paying more interest and whatnot?
You got your interest just 0.48, so it's really, to be honest with you, I might recommend you
Can
do
you
it.
change it later? I mean, can you want more?
Well, I can lower the minimum.
Yeah.
There, I have a minimum that we have to pay. This is the recommended amount, okay? Reviewing all the debt, I had a discussion with Noah, we talked about, I was talking about the street reconstruction, because I wanted to pay it off. And I said, look, I want to avoid having the village have to pay all those fees. And he said, look, on under $1 million, we'll be okay, we won't have to get rated. And that made all the difference in the world, okay? Not being required to be rated.
Can we use that money for a longer time till it starts to trend upward and then?
Well, you mean which one?
Lower that to 30, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, but what would happen is this still, the residual, I think it was 287,000, let's say we only pay 22,000 of it, or 30,000 of it. The remainder next year has to become a serial bond by law.
Oh, okay, all right. And we don't know
Just
that.
this, street reconstruction. Special districts have a different,
Or pay it off, has to be zero bond or pay it off.
correct. But you don't have the wherewithal to pay it off, because you'd have to cut so much else out.
So if we leave it the way it is, we don't have to do a serial bond.
No, next year we'll
We gotta
have.
pay it off.
You have to
No
do a
matter
serial
what,
bond,
we'll
but
just
you
have to
won't
pay
have to
more.
be rated.
Yeah.
So your cost is much less than, a rating basically
So-
requires a rating agency to do an analysis of the current.
Right, in your
Status.
opinion, should we lower this to get the extra 20,000 for this year for the A fund?
Yes.
I'm saying probably that's where we're gonna be, but we don't need to do it now. Let's do it after the tentative, based on how
If we
everything
need
comes
it,
out.
if we need
it,
30
yeah.
grand here or there, okay.
Yeah, yeah, that's the only spot that you
That's a
do
good
have.
question to have.
You do
Yeah.
have some room there, okay? All right, so this will be either way. Okay, and then interfund transfers, what I call the pseudo reserve funds, there's nothing there. Okay, so when you break it all down, as things sit right now, you're looking at a spend of about $225,000 over last year, which is around 4.5%.
We're spending $225,000 more?
On your budget, yes.
Why?
Well, you have a bigger contingency,
Oh, okay, that works for me.
okay? You have, I'll give you the significant stuff.
You know what, I saw the $75,000 extra in contingency, I just remembered.
Well, your contingency's up 42,000,
Okay.
okay? Your village attorney went up 17,000.
And that line
Technic-
covers
I'm sorry?
Brian Goldberger.
Yes.
Right.
you know.
Your unallocated,
Hopefully
your
we'll be
insurance,
less, but-
your insurance is up 25,000.
Mm.
But you did get, by making a decision to charge your special districts for their insurance, you are getting a 70,000 benefit, so that kind of gets that more than washed out. Let's see what else is significant here. Contingency's 42. Police department salary went up dramatically. If I take 15 off of that, you're still up 30,000 in police. Your overtime in police, based on 5%, goes up 13,000. Your police equipment went up 32,000. So your police overall went up almost 70,000.
We have the
Your
car.
fire department went up
Do we still have a car in that figure?
30, yes, there's still a car in that figure.
Can we do without, we got, what, 6 vehicles plus the chief's vehicle? And I think 2 of them have less than 50,000 or 50,000 miles on them, a couple have 100, a couple have, do we have to get another car this year?
Yeah, the chief put out a report
Oh.
for the cars.
You already said that at that meeting, that you'd leave it in, and that was knowing it was on the chopping block
Right.
really for the
And
first
you
round.
don't, again, you don't have to chop it now.
But I mean, if.
After the
cap-
tentative-
Can we look into this too
Oh,
also?
Okay, I would take the 30 out, put 10 in the, 10 of the 30 in the reserve and move on.
Leave it in reserve so we have the funding for
Ken
the
didn't
car.
mention it was, he looked into more bids, and it was understood.
Right.
Yeah, but we have a $200,000 increase in that we gotta look at.
Salary.
Yeah, I mean, overall, to stay within this cap.
I mean,
So we gotta cut something somewhere, somehow.
Well,
not yet.
No, not yet, but,
I agree.
okay, good, we'll talk about that in a second.
okay.
Okay, and I'm looking at everything else here, you know, several thousand here and there, nothing,
Okay,
nothing that much bigger, okay?
anything else?
Next is your special districts.
Okay.
We'll go to F fund. Revenues,
That's sewer?
that's your sewer, oh no, water, I'm sorry, water. Okay, your water revenues are going up thanks to your decision to increase your rates, and also thanks to the fact that your out-of-district users are hooking up, not as quickly as I thought they would, but you are getting more revenue from their activity. In 2013, it was about 171,000, and now you're almost 20% higher at 210. Okay, so your revenue line puts you at about 813,000. And then you go to your expense. This is page 1 and 2 on the expenses. We moved engineer up to 10. Your property taxes are 40. Now, I will tell you this, Mayor, I recommend we go over to the school and we try to get Bog Meadow taken care of. It's really it's an aberration.
Let's figure out when's the next board meeting, because we have to start moving on this stuff now.
I would ask either member Kutsaratus or Kelly when they feel would be a good time to come.
Well, I did ask, because I wanted to go for another issue, this past one, where they were saying goodbye to Dr. Jackson, so they said to come to the next one, that was this past Thursday, so this Thursday, next Thursday is the next meeting. Can we prepare something for that, or just I ask? Can we prepare some numbers?
Well, the numbers are here.
Or no, you know what, we need to prepare, the clerks already actually did it, if we still have it available, if not, we'd ask maybe, Z to take a, we did call around to the other areas, we found the majority of them, we're not taxing the villages.
Well, I think the biggest thing is the county and the town don't tax it.
Right.
Can, is there a formal grievance since the school is the only?
No, I think if we just bring, we bring the documentation, that, just in writing, so they have
You
it.
have to remember too, they're technically gonna be recipients of this water. So
Right,
it's kind of a vested interest, you know, water rates are dependent on your efficiency and not having to pay taxes. Now, you still have to pay taxes on your special fire district and ambulance district and so on, but the school district is really, it's difficult to, you know, pay something like that when it's a water supply. All right, your contingency, again, I set contingencies at 10% of your expenditures. So your contingency for water is 75K. Water administration is 9, it's split with the sewer department. Purification came in at the salary was about 130,000. That does not include raises. Salary overtime, 5% factor. Equipment, based on presentation. So your overall purification and filtration went up about $10,000, $11,000.
is scheduled overtime in regular purification salary?
Is there scheduled overtime?
Not is there, scheduled overtime right now that is occurring. Is that in regular purification salary, because it's obviously not in the overtime?
I don't believe so.
We're hopefully shortly gonna be able to eliminate it, at least almost all of it. But we have to budget for it until it's done, and then we can roll over whatever you need. But that, I'm wondering where that line item is, because I almost wanna pull that, you pull that overtime, I also wanna pull out the scheduled overtime, just to show people the obnoxiousness of it all.
No, there's no scheduled overtime in their base salary.
Where does that come out of then? Just regular overtime? Because there's a lot of it, there's a lot more than,
Yeah, a lot more than,
there's a lot more than $6,500,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
every weekend. So
I
where's that budgeted?
We're not, I didn't budget scheduled overtime. You didn't ask me to budget scheduled.
I know I didn't.
and I don't think you should budget scheduled overtime.
Okay,
It-
so how have we been dealing with it in the past?
Where does the money been coming from?
That's all.
Contingency.
Contingency.
Okay,
You
just
don't
so I
wanna-
know.
you
I don't
let
wanna
it-
give them,
Let
right,
you guys control it, right? If you budget it in there, you're never gonna know about it.
Right.
But if you all of a sudden, overtime line is out, empty, you guys have to vote to move money from contingency to that line to make up the difference, which what does that do? It brings up the issue again.
Puts it on the front burner.
Yeah, puts it on the front burner. How do we deal with it?
did we do that this year, vote to put more money in?
Yeah, there's
Okay.
been transfers. Yeah.
I know, well, we've had a lot of transfers this year because of the fact we've changed.
Well,
the
here,
format,
no,
and
you
I
know
like
what,
it. I
I
like
stand corrected, the reason why it's not yet is because you haven't exhausted your regular salaries yet. You will start to do this at the end of the year.
You mean the scheduled overtime is still within our regular?
Your regular salary is paying out whatever these salaries are, okay? The overtime that's on that you have on here is a new thing.
Right.
Technically,
Oh,
any,
so this overtime's not on last year's,
what do you mean this over?
the overtime line?
No, we did put it. Let me look at the code, I'll tell you what's been spent so far. All right, water purification overtime line. Yes, it's 13,540 over budget.
Over budget.
So,
That came out of contingency, and we're budgeting 5%.
Well, technically, it will come out of contingency because a request has to be made to get this back to zero.
Okay.
Because right now it's on the negative, all right? But if we're doing this ideally and perfectly, we should be doing these transfers every pay cycle. But I'm not gonna put you through that because it'd be crazy, all right? But at the end of the year, we're gonna have to make those adjustments, all right? So, and that's the main line, is the purification line. The other line's not having an issue. All right, so now we go to your transmission distribution. Again, that's one person. And those numbers are as published. The only main increase was your contractual went up 5. State retirement ticked up just a little bit. And that ticking up was largely just due to balancing a little bit from last year, just to get the number closer to actual. It actually, the state retirement, like the other ones, did go down, but there was just some balancing between the departments. So everything else here, health insurance obviously went up. So you're looking at about $6,000 difference in the total benefit line. Page 2. Your serial bonds are as published, so there's really no wiggle room there. Your water bond anticipation notes for water tanks, as I mentioned yesterday, I'm looking to maybe increase $45,000 in principal payments. My goal is really for you guys to, as quickly as you can, pay off your debt. All right, so that you can start putting away for future projects, and then you can take a look and see if your rates are correspondingly working. Okay? So your principal for water tanks, I'm looking to maybe pop it up to $135,000 to be paid back. Remember, water tanks were a big expense, over $1 million. Reserve funds, 10 for vehicle reserve, and then your interfund transfer of $13,000 for administrative. Okay? Now, there are no interfund revenues because there's nothing that the water department is doing for the A fund that you should be paying for. But it is working in reverse because the A fund is paying for insurance, is paying for the IT support and so on. Okay?
But, so this year we are gonna be taking more out of water for A fund.
This year you can, by board decision, you can do a transfer in line with what you're doing in this budget, because you can back up that the insurance costs and the IT expense should have been charged. But now, because you're more activity-based costing, you're picking up on that. There's still other stuff that you can get charged, but
Will that
these are the
increase-
big ticket things. These are the easy ones. You know, as you get a good routine down, then you can start really going into more deeper things like, you know, loader was used 30% of the time down at the sewer plant. You know what? Cost of that loader, transfer that cost, okay? Police department had to stand duty because of the water main break and had direct traffic for 3 days. It's chargeable, okay? So once you get to a point where you really have this down, you can charge out a lot of stuff, and you rightfully should.
If we do that retroactively to this current fiscal year, instead of having 19,000 left over in the A fund, it will be measurably more.
Well, it would be by that factor, because what you're doing is you're saying, okay, the A fund supported these two funds by this amount of money, and we want to be reimbursed for that.
And then
Can we do that?
Sure.
that in turn will give us a higher dollar amount before we hit the cap.
It
For
will
this
not,
year.
it won't affect anything for this budget.
No.
It will affect, though, your fund balance
Right.
utilization
Well,
for
fund
this,
balance,
for
yeah,
the
I
2000 budget year, 2014.
Right, 14, 15.
We don't get bonus dollars for unused dollars that.
Tax cap
Yeah.
dollars? You do, you
Yeah, I
do.
thought so.
But those dollars are, you know, you're talking $19,000 that go on top of the, I think it was 1.65 ratio. So it's not, that's not a lot of money. But if you decide that, you know what, we should have budgeted this as an interfund revenue, but we want to take action because we can back it up, we spent $70,000 of A fund money in insurance and computer support in this fiscal year, you can do that, and a budget transfer can be done. And if the auditors asked a question, I'd say, this is paying for a utilization of A fund money.
Is that number, can we use that number for this year's cap though, I guess, that's what,
No,
it's next year?
no. That will help you for next year, but what that number will do is, like you spend $50,000 and knock that house down, A fund money. Well, if you're getting 70,000 of special district money in for services in kind, then that gives you a net 20, because now all of a sudden your A fund has another revenue source of $70,000. Okay, so it will defer or defray some of the charges that you spent. But again, I'm willing to put it forward as long as it's supportable.
Right.
And stuff like this is. Boards really never really paid attention to this stuff until the cap came in.
Who's gonna go through and do the line items?
What line items you don't have?
This percentage for this percentage for the,
Well, you're gonna have to do that, you know, I'll assist, but you're gonna have to do that in the course of a year as you guys discover, geez, you know what, A fund money is being used for sewer department, let me note that down and put that on the table. You know, and then like, what you really should do is the department heads
every
should
department
really
meeting
be
should have
thinking
a-
about it, you know?
We should actually have a form.
We should have
There
that.
should be a form to make it easier for them of tech,
what-
front loader, blah, blah, blah,
What
blah.
they're doing, yeah.
And every 2 weeks, just fill it out, have it at a department head meeting, here it is. And then we have, 25 sheets for a department for the year.
You have a pretty good idea.
Add it up.
yeah.
Put it in the computer and we're done.
Yeah, because as you get, like the easy ones like insurance and stuff, they're very easy, just you 25, 25, 50, that's how you broke it down. You know, if somebody says, geez, maybe it should have been 20, 20, 60. All right, we'll
Right.
adjust that. But once you start getting to some of the more minutia items, it's gonna require a lot more deliberate paperwork, okay? But I'm perfectly comfortable with recommending that, because this is what towns and villages are gonna have to do. Because for a long time, you didn't worry about it. You didn't have the pressure. Although as a taxpayer, you could probably make a complaint and say, we pay $150,000 for insurance, and the A fund takes care of it all, and meanwhile, these other places are getting free insurance, because because they also pay the sewer and water bills, they kind of like, well, ultimately, all the money, goes in the same spot. But now, because of the fact that all the pressure is being put on for the tax side of the house, the A fund typically is the one that's default. So if a service is needed, most of the time it's coming out of the A fund. So that's how, you know, I think you'll be able to mitigate some of your costs, okay? So we can, in May, we can put together a transfer sheet that will basically say that the insurance expense, the IT expense, and if we come up with anything else that we think is decently
Yeah.
an A-fund expense, you know, even the fire department, if the fire department was used, you know, let's say Bog Meadow had a big fire over there, you know, brush fire, and a lot of resources were used over there. It's kind of water department piece of property, you could charge it. Could say, look, A-fund funds were used for a special district, you know, so, just thoughts. All right.
Unfortunately,
Yeah, I
it is
know.
what we have to do.
Yeah.
All right, sewer rents, watch all this directive I'm giving you. I become like the state poster guy of don't listen to him, because he's defeating what we're trying to do here. But it's true, you know, if tax money is being used to do special district work, it should be charged
I
back.
agree.
All right, your sewer rents, about $1.1 million is what you're expected to bring in. Right now, you're tracking, I'm using conservative numbers here, which is obviously the preferred way to go. Right now, you are tracking 1.122 is what your revenue is. So this year's revenue exceeded even my request by $22,000. Okay, so I think that this number, highly unlikely that we won't reach this number. We probably should exceed it. Okay.
For out-of-district sewer users, it's 2.35 or
277%.
277?
But we do 187, so it's not that much higher than ours.
Yeah, but 277.
Is that something that's still outstanding out there, that issue?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, just working the way down, other than that, everything else has been adjusted according to plan. No insurance recovery is expected at this point, so obviously, and that wouldn't have been budgeted for anyway. All right, going to page 1 of your expenditures. We're at the home stretch. Your engineer, upped that to $10,000. I think with all of what you're trying to do with your special districts, it's safe and recommended that you, if you can afford to, that you have a healthy engineer line. Because again, what happens if you don't have it in your special districts? Guess who's paying the engineering costs?
Right.
The A fund. And nobody's ever really gonna find that, you know? So, I think it's recommended that you get it to the right place.
I think we need to go back to Al and make sure that anything he's done is being done in the right spot also. This past year it's been done properly, so that we can capture the dollars you're talking about.
Yeah. So your contingency line is $100,000, it's approximately 10%. The admin again is the same as last year. Your contractual, 37.9, pretty flat. Your sewer plant salary, 203. Again, that's longevity factored in. Overtime is based on the 5% factor. Your equipment went up because there's a truck wanting to be purchased, I believe. I believe it's a truck. And your contractual went down a little bit.
They put up for a truck.
I don't remember.
I know one of them, water or sewer, put in for a truck.
I know water pulled their truck.
I thought we put the kibosh on the water truck, but
Yeah.
I don't remember sewer being on the vehicle.
Hang on, let me pull it up. I know there was a truck somewhere. I don't know where it was. Equipment, 8130.
thought they were redoing one of the pieces.
Yes, you are correct. It is, Penawalt V-Notch chlorinators.
Right.
That's what it is. Must be water that had the truck then. I'm sorry, yeah, water.
He was asking the truck, and we asked him to wait
Yeah.
another year. On the contractual, why are we half? Is that because we fixed a lot of stuff and we're not having to do a lot of the costs?
Where are you talking about?
8130.04.
That is because there was insurance involved there. That was a budgeted,
okay.
adjusted budget.
Okay.
That reflects the insurance payment.
Yeah. Okay, and then, your retirement, your social security, your workers' comp, and your health insurance are nominally, in the ballpark, adjusted for experience. Page 2.
And the workers' comp there, I mean, I don't think there's been any claims down there, has there, that would go up? Or is it just going up regardless of the issue?
This is the estimate and the amount that they gave us. This
Okay,
came
all right.
directly from them, and then it gets
Okay.
apportioned out by the departments and the
Okay.
exposure.
Would some departments have a higher rate than others as far as an increase? I mean,
I believe the way they look at it is as a village.
overall?
Yeah, and
Okay.
then we apportion it out based on the number of employees.
So regardless of whether a clerk or somebody who works in a dangerous area, the cost is the cost to the village?
Well, for the way we do it, yes. The way they look at it, I'm sure each position, as they analyze it, they
Right.
assign a factor
And
to
they
it.
just send us a bill.
And then
total.
we get the total, and it's quarterly, so we get
Right.
broken up into quarters,
Right.
okay? Workers' comp is something you can do things about, though. You can control it, you know, and by that is by safety programs and making sure people aren't doing all these things,
Right.
you know?
We just need to set that, we never set that board up, that's what I have to get on that.
But we send the department heads notices when we
Right.
get training requests. If they don't send anyone,
Yeah, and
that's
and
on
also
them.
with workers' comp, you know, if you have a review board.
That's what we were just talking
Yes,
about.
yeah, but I'm just saying, if you have a review board, it acts as a deterrent.
Right.
Because people realize that they're going to have to answer, and if it's legitimate, it's legitimate, they have nothing to fear, but if it's not, they think twice about a claim, because they realize that it's gonna be evaluated, and if it turns out that, you know, the injury happened down in Florida, and 8 witnesses saw it happen, and then they said they fell off the machine here, you know, you can catch that. And it's not something that you basically just pass your findings over the workers' compensation group, and then they investigate.
The human resources guy recommended we do that, a year and a half ago, I never moved on that. So that's something we need to do. All right, if you put that on my agenda, yeah, there's one.
Okay. All right, so now we're page 2. Your bond is gonna be the same as far as what's on the actuarial schedules there. Your bond anticipation notes, again, I'm looking to up these, because if we have the ability to pay the debt off a little faster, we should. Okay, and then your vehicle reserve and your interfund transfer for administrative is in there. And then your overall budget sits at about $1,061,000. Okay, and again, remember that this is tentative, so changes are coming based on what you guys end up finding out, either through public hearing or finding out based on your own deliberations as to what your fund balance, if any, will be. Utilization of fund balance and appropriation of the fund balance. Okay? So is there any questions, any adjustments? Because basically what we, the only outstanding thing I need is for your non-contractual employees, what is, if any, is your increase?
Zero.
Well, CPI actually is down 0.5%. The social security cost of living adjustment, which I don't think happens every year, that went up 1.7% for this year. The military cost of living went up 1.5, which,
You're saying the non-union people. I thought we already did that.
You guys can give me a number.
What would be the recommended number?
What's going on out there? Anywhere from 0 to,
1.5?
yeah.
nah, there's some that have been 2.753.
Well, this is what we're budgeting, not what we're actually doing, right?
If you budget it, you're implying that that's where you're gonna set your rates, because come July or June.
What rates would we going by? In last year, what was last year's rate?
I think it was 2.
But you're saying the trend is a little higher.
I'm saying it depends on your ability to pay, and it depends on, it really depends on your assessment as to what you can afford.
How many non-union people are?
Full-time?
1, 2, 3,
It's all dealing with, right?
No, you got part-timers. You're mostly part-timers.
All right.
Well, this board, the purchasing person.
Oh, it's us?
There's only 3 full-time.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 3 full-timers, Anna, Margaret, and
There's
Jean.
none of the board, it was 3-5. Who's with me?
No.
Uh,
I say freeze it.
Well, I would say, obviously, to me, minimum 2, but, you know, I prefer, I don't know, I prefer a recommendation from.
I haven't given that any thought, but yeah, we gotta have a factor in a number real soon with that.
If you put it in 2%, how much does it kill us with the budget?
2% will cost you about 20,000.
But you were saying that they have to get their raise no matter what. The union guys, we can put to 0.
No.
Who has to get their
They
raise?
don't have to.
Nobody has to, no, let's clear, nobody has to get a raise. Okay, you could give 0 to everybody, I don't recommend that,
No.
okay?
Right.
And quite frankly, with elected officials, I don't recommend that at all, because that's one of the reasons why the elected official salaries are so
Right.
screwed up in this county, in this community compared to the county. Because everybody, oh, you know, we won't take a raise, we won't take a raise. Well, you know what, then you get to a point where everything's so out of whack compared to the rest of the county, and creates issues. So what I recommend you do is you give something between 1.5 and 3, because that's probably the trend.
2.25.
I think I would go with 2.
I think so.
2.
Yeah.
That's what I said.
2?
I think we need 3, but I'm willing to settle for 2. Is the camera still on?
I'm not thinking about it. No, seriously.
Well, you should be more dramatic, I think it should be 15.
This board is 2%.
I think unless we get a much more of a calculated, it needs to be higher. We can't go lower than 2 unless there's a huge change in the thing, and I wouldn't wanna start a trend where we're going 2.5 to
I
3.
agree.
So I think we should
Because
stay with
that
2.
will set a
What was the
And
precedent.
people-
last,
and
what
people,
was the
they
last
know.
contract we just settled?
Right, people know, 2 is a standard.
And what'd they get?
I
They
think
know they're getting.
They got
2.5?
Two, and was it 2.5 the last year?
Two,
Yeah,
two,
well,
two and a
last
half.
year was 2.5.
So 2 sounds fair.
Yeah.
Mr. Brown, any,
I don't know when the last time there was a raise for the board.
but that's,
I'm not even talking about the
That's
board,
the
I'm
whole
talking
point.
about the rest.
that's
We
the whole
set-
point.
We set that separate, hold on, we vote on that.
You know what, I know what Yorktown's making.
Well, you know what, when I, signed up for this job, I didn't know it was getting paid.
Me either, actually, me either. I had no idea I was getting
Didn't really
paid.
matter, I didn't know it was getting paid.
Okay,
Spend
so,
money.
so 2% looks like the recommended number.
Sounds-
All right, so I'll use a 2% number for the salaries,
All non-count, all non.
non-contractual.
One more thing, you talking about the streetlight outage. Who reported that to the police department, right? Does the police on patrol, do they notice the, well, I don't know if you can answer that or not. Do they notice the lights out? Because
They're supposed to.
I've seen some cases where the lights been out, and I'm quite sure if they ride through neighborhood, they would see the lights out, it happens sometimes.
Can't ask the other departments, because they're all gone when it's daylight. It is the police, that's why it's reported to them also, because they're there 24 hours.
And
And we gotta let the residents also know who the champion, I don't think a lot of residents know who to.
Well, that's the other thing, is that sometimes, the bottom line, the onus needs to go on to the police. Sometimes they're being asked to get a number. No, that's not their job, the residents. It's not their job to go outside and get the number of the pole and call it in. If I say that a light's out on the upper part of West Street, drive up there and get the number, you know, unless you guys are in the middle of 6 investigations. You know,
Usually when
this is money.
Usually when I call in with the light and the number and the pole.
Guys, you are a phenomenal citizen.
You can actually call yourself, you know, if you want.
It's true.
You can call customer service and report an incident.
Oh, I thought you meant call me.
No.
Call me and report it,
Oh, no.
so I can call the police. I was like,
No, if you wanted to call Orange or Rockland with a poll
Right.
number, but they're gonna ask you the poll number, and
right.
it's a 10-digit number, you know. So, and you're right, we're paying for it anyway, whether it's working or it's not.
And that's a safety issue. That's all I need. Any other thing?
Okay, so I'll have the tentative in to the clerk by Friday, and if there's anything else that comes up, or any, just let me know. And then we can't touch the budget until after the public hearing, and then we'll have some more time to jumble things around and tweak it up.
Right.
Okay? All right, thanks for the
I
input.
need a motion to go into executive.
Appreciate your help.
Let's do talk to
Exactly.
executive. Start right now. Does anyone remember why I want to go into executive? We don't, we're not going into executive.
No,
Yes, I do.
You do? Okay, give it 2 seconds.
okay, motion.
Mr. Brown said I love it. He loves it. Done. Motion, second. What was it? Is camera off?
Camera's still on.
It is gonna take 2 seconds. I just want to make sure.